Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jays Down Podcast. And today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 teams going to NFL season next year in 2025. But before you do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button right there at the right corner of your screen. Follow us on Instagram, Jays Down Pod, also on TikTok, Jays Down Pod for, more content, everything, staying up to date, everything going on in NFL, college football, all that good stuff. But today, like I said, these are the teams to me that are the cream of the crop, the top 10 NFL teams going into next season. And yes, I'm ranking them so I'll be starting from 10 to 1. And these are just, just going through some of the moves made in free agency and just talking about just how I think these teams will fare in the 2025 NFL season. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So at number 10, I have the Chicago Bears. And here's the thing with the Bears. They hired Ben Johnson, who left Detroit. And you hire a guy who's an offensive mind. He's working with Dan Campbell, and adding that mentality, the tough mentality the Lions play with. He's going to, I'm sure, invoke that into the team facility here in Chicago, right? There in Chicago, just bringing that type of mentality and setting the tone. And that's important. What people oftentimes overlook is that when you have a coach who he comes from a winning team, winning program, whether it's college, high school, or the NFL, and they have that culture there where it's just like, hey, we're going to show up, we're going to work, we're going to win, we're going to get after it every single day, give perfect effort, and be not just the best football players we can be, but the best men we can be off the field as well, and I think that's what Ben Johnson is bringing to the Chicago Bears team. It's going to be huge for them. They made some great free agency moves, trading for Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, also the former Patriots, so Super Bowl champion Joe Thuney, who's on the older side, but still a solid guard for them. He had played a lot of tackle this past season for the Chiefs where he wasn't that good, due to the offensive line issues that Kansas City was having, but he goes back to guard here in the Chicago offense, which is, I think, going to help out, especially keeping Caleb Williams upright, going to his second season. And they also traded for Jonah Jackson as well. So, another former Lion player, former Ram, Jonah Jackson. I think that's another good move for them. He's another solid, good offensive lineman, solid guard, which is the spots that I think the Bears were weakest at, was the guard position, the left guard, right guard spot. And I think it's huge for them. I think it's very huge for them that they are, going to bringing these guys into the locker room, bringing these offensive linemen to the locker room. You also go out and you sign Grady Jarrett from the Falcons, so bringing experienced defender to an already solid defense. I think that was a good move for them as well. They also picked up Drew Dalman, so another former Falcon. Bears taking on our players, man. What's up with that? What's something in Chicago? It's like, hey, why are they specifically targeting former Atlanta players? That's all I don't know. But anyway, that's the name of the thing with that. But the Bears, like I said, overall, I think they've had a great offseason. I think this is the most important time. When you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, that is the most important time to attack other areas that you need on your roster, fill those spots on your roster that you need, whether it's, offensive line help or wide receiver help. They also added Devin Duvernay and Lamade Zaccheaus, who both had solid seasons last year, so that was, I think that's key, right? That's the maximum window. When you have your quarterback on a rookie deal, you look at the Washington Commanders and Jay Daniels right now, their window to win a Super Bowl is within the next 3 years. He finished up his first season. They made the NFC Championship game, lost to the Eagles, but this is their window to win. The same thing with the Bears. This is their window to win while Caleb Williams is on his rookie contract, because now you have money to spend on other positions of need on your offense, on your defense, on the roster in general. So that is, I think, a good method to go by. I think it's a blueprint that all teams should go by, really, when it comes to, filling out your roster and attacking those areas of need. So that being said, so my next team coming up here on my list is the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers obviously dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Ricky Pearsall was hurt. Deebo Samuel was kind of in and out. Brock Purdy had a solid season. It was okay. It just wasn't good. Like I said, they had a lot of players hurt and stuff, and you had the whole Devondre Campbell fiasco, and he wasn't going to play or whatever. So 49ers went through a lot. I do think they'll be better going into this season than they were last year. I don't have them. I don't have them if they make the playoffs, making it past the wild card round. I just don't think roster wise, this team is in the spot that they were last. Well, not last year, the year before last, and so 23 season, the 2022 season, 2021 season, they made all those NFC Championship games, made the Super Bowl as well. I don't think they're that team anymore. They had their window for three years, and they missed it. So they couldn't get the job done. So that's why I have the 49ers right there. But I still think they're a solid regular season team. And then up next on my list, I got the Minnesota Vikings, right? So at number 8, the Vikings. Sam Darnold, after having a great season, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks this past year, he goes to sign a big deal with the Seahawks. And now you got J.J. McCarthy, who it seems like the Vikings are rolling with as their starting quarterback for this upcoming season. And, I didn't picture anything different for them. They still could go sign a veteran to come back them up. But it seems like all indications are that J.J. McCarthy will be the starting quarterback for the Vikings in the 2025 season. So if that is the case, JJ hasn't really, we saw glimpses of him in the preseason, but obviously that was not against you need to see him in a full speed regular season game in the NFL, right? So that's another thing. And not even just week 1 and 2, but week 6, week 7, week 8, in the gritty, nitty part of the season when you're hurt, you're banged up, you're tired. I gotta see, is he going to be able to be the guy that can lead Minnesota back to the playoffs even further than they went last year? The offensive line was a big problem for the Vikings. And, it's something was Sam Darnold's fault in the playoff game, but, also was the fact that they allowed 9 sacks. You can't do that. So, for Minnesota, definitely have to improve on offensive line. But other than that, roster-wise, they're really good. You got Justin Jefferson out there, Jordan Addison. Aaron Jones, solid running back still in the league. So I really like the Minnesota Vikings here at this spot at number 8. I don't think they're really any better than that. Until they prove otherwise, because again, you essentially have a rookie quarterback starting. He missed his whole rookie season, so he essentially will be a rookie really this year, technically. Then up next at 7, we got the Los Angeles Rams. So the Los Angeles Rams were a team that I don't think people thought were going to make it as far as they did last year. They had some struggles early on in the year, and defensively they're very young, they're very fast. They got some studs on the defense side of football. Offensively, Matthew Stafford's come back, and he's still at his age one of the better veteran quarterbacks in the NFL. You get rid of Cooper Kupp, but bring in Devontae Adams, and Puka Nacua. Added to that offense. I think it's still a dynamic offense. And with Sean McVay and the mind he has, he's going to be able to get production out of really probably any player. So I think the Rams are definitely a playoff team. I would say they're a divisional team right now. But obviously you got to go out there and you got to be able to stop people on defense. That's the big thing. They had a lot of big games last year where they let the score get out of hand. So defensively, you're going to have to be able to get stops. I think that's going to be key for the Los Angeles Rams going to next season. Up next at 6, we got the Bengals. Their defense was messed up last year. Just was a very atrocious defense. And Joe Burrow had one of the best seasons he had. Jamar Chase led the NFL in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, all that stuff. He had a great season. They locked him and T. Higgins up to big contracts. So Jamar Chase is now the highest paid receiver in the NFL. And they got those deals done, so they already did Joe Burrow's deal a while back. So they got their main 3 offensive playmakers signed through the next couple of years, which is what they were, honestly, they should have done it earlier than what they did because the market reset. And now, they probably could have paid Jamar and T a little bit more cheaper. But, they got it done, nevertheless. And so defensively, though, is where my problems lie for the Cincinnati Bengals. You got to get stops on defense. Same kind of thing with the Rams. You got to, this defense is a little bit older, more experienced, but just have a lot of holes there on the defensive side that they need to address, especially in the secondary. So I would expect them to go after a cornerback in the draft. And then you still got Trey Hendrickson, right? We don't know what's going to happen with him, if he's going to come back or, if he's going to get traded somewhere else. So that's something to keep an eye on. At number 5, I got the Detroit Lions. So the Lions losing Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator, and like they lost Aaron Glenn he's going to be the head coach with the Jets. So you lose your two coordinators, two offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. So it's going to be tough. But I still think this team can manage to win. About 12 games. I still make 11 to 12 games. I don't really see any more than that. I think the Lions. It's going to depend on how Jared Goff plays, and he's going to have a consistent year. If they get that rushing attack with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, they can keep that going, keep that consistent throughout the entire season. That can help them for sure. But when it comes down, let's also remember, guys. I mean, half their defense was like decimated. Towards the latter end of the year, they had like 13 players on IR. So not making excuses for the Lions, but that's something to also keep in mind with last season. So getting those guys back healthy, be interesting to see. Hopefully they stay healthy the whole season or most of the season. But excuse me, be interesting to see how those guys look when they all get back right. And number 4, we got the Baltimore Ravens, a team that just keeps getting close, but they can't finish the deal. They can't go over the hump. Feels like I've been saying this about Baltimore for years now, Lamar Jackson. And I hate it for him because he's such a talented player, such an awesome quarterback, great guy as well. But just the Ravens just have not been able to get the job done. And until they do, I'm not gonna put them any higher on my list. They got to beat Buffalo in the playoffs. You got to beat Kansas City in the playoffs. Until they do those things, I just can't put them that much higher, right? So you got the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of, at number 3, right? Buffalo, same kind of deal. This year in year out, Josh Allen and the Bills will just they roll through the regular season, get to the playoffs. Can't beat the Chiefs, and it's the same story year after year. And we're wondering, when is this going to end? When is Josh Allen finally going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason? And it has not happened yet. And so my thing for the Bills is your roster, is still talented, still got a talented defense. Offensively, you're going to have Keon Coleman coming in his second year. Matt Collins left in free agency to the Bills, so I would expect them to go after another receiver to kind of fill that spot, his void. But overall, I think the Bills are going to, win another 13 games this year, probably make the AFC Championship game, and lose to the Chiefs. And at number 2, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they went to the Super Bowl this year, took that big L to Philly. I think they're going to come out with a vengeance next year. I think they're going to be embarrassed, and they're going to come out and try to, prove that the Super Bowl was a fluke, and that's not how they play. And I expect them to come out rolling next season. Even with Travis Kelce on the decline, this team, you lost some players in free agency, but you're still getting back Xavier Worthy. You're getting back Rashid Rice from injuries. So that should help add to that dynamic offense. And Andy Reid back there calling the plays, and number 15 throwing the football. Kansas City always is going to be in the top 4 for the Super Bowl. So that's just something to keep an eye on. And my last team, my number one team going into 2025 is the Philadelphia Eagles, your Super Bowl champions from this past year. Top to bottom, this roster, even though they've lost some players in free agency, they're still very talented. Jalen Hurts has proved that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And Saquon Barkley is still coming back, off a 2,000-yard rushing season, which is amazing. He completely changed how that Eagles team was. When you add a running back like him to an offensive line that's massive and that can move people off the football, and that's a good precision passing attack with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith going down the football field, it really helps, right? It really helps. It's going to help boost you over. And that's what it did for Philly in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, and I'm very interested to see how, defensively, how they kind of fill the holes that they lost in the draft, maybe in free agency, as we go throughout the offseason here. But overall, I got the Eagles as my best team in the NFL this season. So thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of Jay's Fifth Down. We appreciate you as always. Make sure you hit that subscribe button in the right corner of your screen. Follow us on Instagram, Jay's Fifth Down Pod, and TikTok, Jay's Fifth Down Pod. We will see you next time on the show.